Well, that would have happened before I left Phoenix for New York. So in the couple of years prior to my moving to New York, um, I worked with blues singer Jimmy Witherspoon. I worked with Red Garland, came to Phoenix to play, and I was asked to play with him. I worked with Lee Konitz there. There was a club there called the Boojum Tree. It was part of the Doubletree Hotel there. And I worked there with Lee Konitz. I worked there with Art Pepper, and I worked there with Sonny Stitt, a week each of those. So that was really kind of a wow experience for me to get a chance to play with those musicians at that time. 21, 20, so really pivotal events because they were encouraging to me and encouraged me that I should leave and go to New York, and that I had a certain amount of skill and talent that it would take to be successful. If it were not for them, I may not have realized that I should do that. There were a couple other people who were instrumental in that. One was a grad student at Arizona State who was he was an arranger, a piano player. He just passed away recently. His name was Charles Argersinger. And he pulled me aside one day at ASU and he said, "Louis, you're not a music major, are you?" And I said, "No." And he said, "So you don't plan on a career in music?" And I said, "No." And he said, "I think you're making a mistake." So that was the first time somebody kind of dropped something on me that made me think about my direction career-wise. And then the second person would be someone who turned out to be my teacher later on, and that's Frederick Waits, Freddie Waits, the drummer, and great drummer Freddie Waits. And he came to Phoenix with Billy Taylor's trio, and I was there and I met him. We struck up a friendship, a mentorship type friendship, and he was very encouraging as well. And he recommended that I come to New York one summer to study with him, which I did in 1979. And that was when I had a chance to, that was my first trip to New York, had a chance to kind of get a feel for New York City, go to the clubs. So I heard Max, I heard Elvin, I heard Art Blakey, so then I knew what I had to do. I came back and just kind of bided my time until I could get back to New York. And it didn't take as long as I thought it might, because in 1980 or early 81, I got a call, it was 1980, I got a call to audition for Betty Carter's group. It was probably the end of 1980, and then in 81 is when I joined her. So that was because of Freddie Waits' recommendation also. And I got a call from Betty, and she met me at JFK with my drums and my luggage, and we went straight to her house and rehearsed. And I haven't stopped since then. I spent 4 years with Betty, and she was extremely demanding, but with good reason. The music was very important to her, and we were, she always had young musicians, and she wanted us to strive for excellence all the time, and never come on stage and give less than 100%. So I understood where that demanding energy was coming from. So I just tried to give her and myself, what was necessary to make the music be on that high level that she wanted. Yeah. When I joined Betty, Mulgrew had left a little before I got there. So it was a pianist named Khalid Moss from Dayton, Ohio, and Curtis Lundy was playing bass. So that's who was, when I arrived at Betty's house for the rehearsal, that's who was there waiting. And preceding me in the band, well, Kenny Washington had been there for a while, and then just before me was a drummer named Greg Bandy. And so I'm sure these guys were wondering, who is this kid from Phoenix? Why is Betty calling him when there's all these guys around New York? You know, but because of Freddie Waits' high recommendation, she took a chance and it worked out. And I was prepared as best I could be. I listened to all of her stuff, all the recordings that were available, practiced hard, and I just went in and tried to do what I knew how to do. And after a couple of tunes, she said, "Okay, kid," she called me kid all the time, "Okay, kid, you got the gig. You know, your first gig is going to be in Washington, D.C. at Blues Alley next week. And do you have a passport? No, you better get one because we're going to Europe in the summer." So, yeah.
You're off.
Off and running, yeah. Mulgrew Miller was a giant among my peers in stature, physically and musically. And one of my dear friends, who I miss very much, who learned a lot from playing with. And he played on my very first recording as a leader, that recording is called Rhythm Is My Business. Mulgrew Miller, Peter Washington, and thinking about Mulgrew, I can't even think of who's on the record, but just talking about Mulgrew, he, for me, really kind of demonstrated what someone of my generation could aspire to, and the kind of the feeling that he expressed through his music, the way he carried himself, just his whole spirit, his whole demeanor. You know, we had lots of talks about life, about what it means to do what we do, about family, about history, spirituality, about many things. And he just embodies the spirit that I think it takes to do this thing that we do. He really was someone who we could all kind of look up to, even though he was in our generation. And his music is some of the most expressive. I love playing his originals, and I just loved his feeling at the piano. He had the thing that we listened to the great piano players to get, you know, the swing feeling, the creativity, the creative lines, the surprises, all of that. So for me, we lost someone who had much more to say and much more to do when we lost him. Hi, I'm Louis Nash, and for more interviews, go to JazzTimes.com.